what a joy to see all of you who are here gathered with us tonight in this Mishkan, and thank you to all of you who are joining us tonight online. It is a pleasure to be joined together this Shabbat, the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Shabbat Tshuva, and also, of course, today, our day of national truth and reconciliation. We have seen a lot of each other over the last few days and weeks, and we will continue to see a lot of each other in the next few days and weeks. And yet, is it ever too late or ever too much to turn to someone you maybe do not know yet or have not seen in quite some time and say, Shabbat Shalom, welcome to Holy Blossom, welcome home. Shabbat Shalom. We begin Kabbalat Shabbat, our welcoming of the Sabbath bride, on page 105 with Yedid Nefesh. For candlelighting this evening, we would love to invite anyone who has not yet had the opportunity to light and is maybe back at Holy Blossom for the first time in a while, someone who is looking forward to lighting as part of our community to come up and light our communal candles. And this evening, I would like to invite up in, perhaps a little bit selfishly, I will admit, but I would like to invite my wife, Taylor Baruchel, to light Shabbat candles this evening in honor of her beginning her training in her clinical pastoral education this week, the next chapter in the beginning of her own rabbinate.
I have a history of clumsy candle
But we would also love people to come up to this side and help us light candles. Thank you.
Thank you.
As the nights get longer, more light is a good thing.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Asher lo hayam v'hu asahu v'yabeshet yadav yatsaru bo nishtachaveh v'nichra nivracha lifnei Adonai Yoseinu ki hu Eloheinu v'anachnu amarito v'tzon yado hayom Mikala Tishmo Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz Shiru Ladonai Baruch Shemo Basru Yom Liyom Yeshuato Zafru V'goyim Kevodo B'chol V'chutav Ki Top of 109, off Tikkun Tevel, Baltimore, Yadin Amim, B'Meisharim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel Haaretz, Yiram Hayam, Yiram Hayam, Yiram Hayam, Yiram Hayam, Yiram Hayam, Yiram Hayam, Yalo Sadai, V'chol asher bo, Aziranu kol atzeyar, Lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz, Yishpot tevel b'tzedek v'yamim be'emunato. Middle of page 111. Zamru Adonai bechinor v'kol zimra b'chatzot zkrot v'kol shofar hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai Yiram hayam umlo tevel v'yoshveva Yishpot tevel b'tzedek ve'amim b'meisharim Yiram hayam umlo tevel v'yoshveva necharot imcha uchav yachad harim yiraneinu
hours of speaking about coming home on Rosh Hashanah, I had perhaps the quintessential Canadian, Torontonian experience. We live across the street from other members of this congregation, and so I often see them when we are coming and going, but I especially see them the evening when we take our bins out for collection. And so, in that twilight, the day after Rosh Hashanah, I was chatting with my neighbor, and we were talking about how lovely the service had been, how nice it was to see so many people here at Holy Blossom, and yes, that Yom Kippur is in fact still next week. And so we waved goodbye, and just then, as I started to move my bin, it shook, and it made a noise, and I jumped away, and I shouted out in surprise, and this tiny little raccoon popped its head out. And it hissed at me quite angrily, and then it vanished into my very full and now very wobbly trash bin. And my neighbor yelled out to me from across the street, "Are you okay?" And I said, "There is a raccoon in the trash." And he said, "Okay, you need a hockey stick." And he went to the garage, and he pulled out a hockey stick, and I used it, and I opened up the trash can, and I shooed the raccoon, and then I said something I didn't know I had in me. I said, "Get! Get!" And off it ran into the distance. It's funny. It is funny. Why am I talking about this on Shabbat? Because sharing these sorts of mundane experiences are part of what religious academics call the building of cultural repertoire. We have this shared narrative that only certain people in certain places can relate to. It's a mark of true insider status that you have the ability to understand this story and know what it conveys instantly. You are culturally competent. You don't need me to explain this any deeper to you. Because if you didn't have this set of skills, you might think he was in mortal danger from a wild animal. Or you might think, why did he need a hockey stick instead of, I don't know, a net or a bow and arrow? Or you might have thought, instead of this being a funny story, that this was a tragedy or a horror story. Cultural competency, cultural repertoire, the things that we understand without even having to think too much about them. Today marks the intersection of two major cultural landmarks. The first is that as Jews, today is Shabbat Shuvah, that Sabbath of repentance between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And the second is that as Canadians, it is our national day of truth and reconciliation. And to someone who is neither Jewish or Canadian, you might not understand what either of those two things are about. But as someone who is both of those things, Jewish and Canadian, you do not need me to explain the powerful symmetry of them falling upon the same day. Every person in this room is united in their competency, understanding intuitively that there is sacred resonance in this moment. And so, standing here and understanding the respect and the honor that both of these observations are due, we will welcome our Sabbath Queen, and with her, the promise of peace and rest, healing and forgiveness. Lecha Dodi, page 115.
Lecha Dodi likrat kalai b'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Lecha Dodi likrat kalai b'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, hishmeanu el hamiuchad, arai echad u'shmo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litihila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Kabbalat. Likrat Shabbat lecha Shabbat chila. Lechadoti likrat kala. Adonai, Adonai, Adonai. B'nai Shabbat lekabela. Lechadoti likrat kala. Adonai, Adonai, Adonai. B'nai Shabbat lekabela. Hitorari, kiva orech, kumi uri, shir daberi, kivod Adonai, alayich migla. Lechadoti likrat kala, Adonai, 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 b'nai Shabbat. Kabbalat. Lechadoti likrat kala, Adonai, 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 b'nai Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, lechadoti likrat kala, Adonai, 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 b'nai Shabbat nekabela. Lechadoti likrat kala, Adonai, 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 b'nai Shabbat nekabela. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, lechagid b'boker chasadecha, ve'emunatcha b'leilot, alei asor v'alei navel, alei gayon v'chinor. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat. Lai 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 lai, ya la la lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvidvuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochabim b'mishmerotehem, b'rakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom uve'layla, umavdil bein yom uve'in layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid imloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shofeinu, Gemeinu nasiach b'chukecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, V'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla. Ve'avatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Baruch Shem kivod malchuto le'olam va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'chayu hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi nitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'zibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha v'lechtecha v'derech v'shochbecha v'gemecha u'shartam le'ot hayadecha v'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam amazuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
All this we hold to be true and sure. You alone are our God. There is none else, and we are Israel, your people. You are our sovereign. You deliver us from the hands of oppressors and save us from the fists of tyrants. You do wonders without number, marvels that surpass our understanding. You give us our life. By your help, we survive all who seek our destruction. You did wonders for us in the land of Egypt, miracles and marvels in the land of Pharaoh. You led your people Israel out, forever to serve you in freedom. When your children witnessed your power, they extolled you and gave you thanks. Willingly they enthroned you, and full of joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang this song.
Mi chamocha la'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehtar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot, o sefele, nora tehilot, o sefele. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, bokeh. Yifat Adonai et Yaakov, Ugalom yad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, God Yisrael.
Grant that we may lie down in peace, Adonai our God, and raise us up, O Sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace, guide us with your good counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield us from hatred and plague, keep us from war and famine and anguish. Subdue our inclination to evil. O God, our guardian and helper, our gracious and merciful Sovereign, give us refuge in the shadow of your wings. Guard our coming and our going, that now and always we may have life and peace. Praised are you, Adonai, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, habarei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. V'shamerun v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam ki sheshet yamin asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashvi shavat vayinafash v'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah Be'alma divarach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon v'yomechon Uv'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael Bagala Uv'izman kariv V'yimaru
Amen.
Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach Le'alam u'l'alamei halmaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitzadar v'yitzaleh V'yitzalal Shemei d'kodesha
Brichu.
Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran mi'alma v'yimeru Adonai sevetai tiftach ufi agita hilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Atovim V'konei Okol V'zocher Chastei Avot Beirut, Umevigula, Livne Videhem, Lemon Shemobiava, Zochreinu L'chaim, Melech Chafetz B'chaim, V'chodveinu B'sefer HaChaim, Le'mancha Elohim Chaim. Melech Ozer Moshiach Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ufokei Tzara. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayem Eitim Atah, Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal. Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayem Eitim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Virofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar. Micha Mocha Bal Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech Meimit, Umachayeh, Umatzmiah Yeshua. Micha Mocha Avarachamim, Zocher Yitzurav L'chaim, Berachamim, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot meitim, Baruch atah Adonai, V'chayei ha'meitim. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yichallelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'melech ha'kadosh. Shalom Ram, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim, Tasim Leolam, Ki Atma, Umelech Adon, Lechol, Lechol, HaShalom, Ki Atma, Umelech Adon, Lechol, Lechol, HaShalom. Lai, 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 lai. Secha Shalom.
On this day of truth and reconciliation, we as a Jewish community are honored to gather and pray and be on this good land. We are filled with gratitude for the start of our sacred season. We are blessed to have had the chance to gather again as a congregation, and we are thankful for the gifts of stories and homes and dreams which tie our kahal together. And we acknowledge that we are not the first to inhabit this land or gather in this place. Our temple is hosted on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Anishinaabeg, the Haudenosaunee, the Ojibwa Chippewa, and the Wendat peoples. And they too formed covenants with the sacred, and they too agreed to peaceably share and care for this land. At this time of sacred healing, in our lives as Canadians, in our lives as Jews, in our lives as individuals, we heed the call of tshuva and the 94 calls of truth and reconciliation. Let us heal our nation, and let us heal our souls. Makor HaChayim, source of life, let us be healed. El Rachum V'Chanun, God of mercy and grace, be our partner in healing. Our community tonight is praying for the health of Johanna Falk, Chana bat Gitel, Sarah Leah bat Moshe Meir v'Naomi, Miriam bat Benjamin v'Sarah Leah, Joel Sears, Gitel Yaakova bat Shmuel v'Sara, Moshe Gershon ben Baruch Shalom Chaim v'Rachel Leah, Yael bat Naomi Gitel, Baruch Dov ben Eliyahu v'Ruta Kohen, Eliyahu ben Chaim Yitzchak v'Rachel, Michael Maris, Shrega Favel ben Rachel u'Moshe, Yaakov ben Yitzchak, Tzvi ben David v'Esther, Miriam bat Chaim v'Frama, and Sarah bat Devorah. Are their names to be added tonight for our prayer and healing? As one community, we join together and pray for their healing.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach avoteinu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
All of these stories tonight are true. Said Molai was born in Azerbaijan and began to train as a judoka, which is an athlete who competes in the sport of judo, by the age of 10. He was noted as a prodigy, recruited, and then trained at a premier Iranian fighting dojo. By the time he was 23 years old, he had won a silver medal at the World Championship, and within a few years after that, he was the world champion. In 2019, Said was in Tokyo, Japan, fighting in the semifinals to defend his title. If he won his upcoming match, Iran versus Belgium, his final fight would be against an Israeli opponent, Sagi Muki. Sagi and Said had never met, and yet both had been told throughout their entire training and competitive lives that the other was his mortal enemy, a representative of everything wrong with both the sport and the world at large. Because the Iranian regime refuses to acknowledge or engage with Israel in any kind of sporting event, the Minister of Sport called Saeed's coaches and ordered him to take a dive in that semifinal round. There's a bit of irony in this, of course, that the same system which tells Saeed that Sagi is his mortal enemy will actually never allow the two of them to fight. Saeed lost that bout against the Belgian judoka, and in the aftermath he exposed his coaches and his handlers who gave him that order to lose on purpose. He refused to return to Iran, and fearing for his life, he defected to Germany, where he joined a team of asylum-seeking athletes. In order to compete in the 2020 Olympic Games, Saeed needed to qualify by winning a Grand Prix. And so, for the first time in his life, he traveled to Israel to train in preparation for the Olympic qualifier. And who was there to be his sparring partner and his #1 fan, praising him all over social media, celebrating his return to the sport? None other than Sagi Muki, the Israeli judoka whose very presence on that judo mat had been the cause for Saeed's defection. Saeed did in fact qualify at the Tel Aviv Grand Prix, trained with the Israeli Olympic judo team in Tel Aviv, competed in the 2020 Olympic Games, though as many of you will probably remember, they actually happened in 2021, and there he won the silver medal. During his victory speech, he turned to the camera from Israel Sports Network and said, "Thank you to Israel for the good energy. This medal is dedicated also to Israel, and I hope that the Israelis are happy for this win." And speaking in Hebrew, he added in, "Todah." Sometimes tshuva is wonderful and simple and hopeful. Forgive, change, grow, overcome. Ben and Sarah, and these are not their real names, were platonic friends in university, separated by a few years and a little bit of will they, won't they energy. He was a junior when she was a freshman, but they shared a friend group, bonded in the theater department. Over the course of university, Ben developed a significant dependence on alcohol, which he masked as just, normal college drinking. The fall after graduation, he went back to campus for homecoming, and feeling lonely at a cast party, ignored and depressed, Ben proceeded to get blackout and very angry drunk. Other people at the party, amused at his belligerent state, began probing him and pushing him, asking him to say what was really going on in that head of his. Drunk and miserable, Ben confessed all of his secret feelings, both the good ones and the terrible ones, lambasting the friends who he had felt had abandoned him when he graduated, his misery at the job that he hated, and expressing his unrequited love, his jealousy, and his physical attraction in the most graphic terms to everybody and anyone who would listen. The subject of his attraction included many people at the party, but chief amongst them was his friend Sarah, who was abroad that semester. Mid-rant, a peculiar look passed over Ben's face. He leaned over, was sick, and passed out. He woke up with a terrible hangover. No memory of the evening, not of anything he had said, and he sobered himself up, finished his homecoming weekend, and returned to his meandering post-college life. It wasn't until nearly a month later that he got a tearful, angry overseas phone call from Sarah, who had just heard from one of the other people at the party about all the demeaning things Ben had said he wanted to do with her. Their friendship was over, and Ben was stunned. He knew she was telling the truth, but he also didn't remember saying any of those things. In fact, it turned out he didn't remember a lot when he was drinking. Was there anything he could do to make it up to her? No, she replied, hanging up. And speaking to that joint group of friends, Ben found out that this hadn't been his first offense. There had been other evenings, other blackouts, that he had never even known was going on. He had a real problem. he determined that if he couldn't repair the friendship, he could at least repair himself. And when Ben told me this story, it was at a program in Beit Tshuva, a Jewish recovery center in LA, where he was treating his alcoholism. He was now a sponsor for younger alcoholics who were also going through recovery. And in retrospect, he was grateful to Sarah, who still wouldn't speak to him. Her painful rejection of his friendship and his desire to even make it up had been the wake-up call that he needed to realize how far gone he already was. Sometimes teshuvah doesn't have a clean ending, and the fixing that we do leaves rough edges, scars, and loss. And yet it's still worthy, and it's still worth doing. Kate moved to Yellowknife as a broadcaster, her very first job out of school. And to quote her, Yellowknife isn't for everybody. It's cold and bitter and poorly funded, and it has a debilitating homelessness issue. And it's also where I had my eyes open to the issues that face Indigenous people in this country. To her surprise, Kate met a lot of good people in Yellowknife, including a woman named Sophie. She was a beautiful soul who lit up entire rooms with her presence and warmed people's hearts, even as she was experiencing homelessness. Sophie was happy to share her life story with Kate, or in fact, just about anybody who would listen. She was from somewhere in the northern part of the Northwest Territories, near Inuvik, and it had been a happy place for her once. And then one day, it wasn't. She'd never had much of an education. Her parents had been residential school survivors, and they passed their trauma, their lack of faith in the state and the government, their hopelessness, down to her. She'd come south to Yellowknife in defiance of that hopelessness, dreaming, in fact, to find something better in her life. But she got stuck instead. Not literally stuck, but systemically stuck. Stuck when you realize you have no way out because there is no support, and there is no home, and there is no community that even cares about whether you are alive or dead. And Sophie liked to hold court at Tim Hortons, where she made new friends and chatted people up every single day because, as was mentioned, she was generous and warm and a guide to the homeless Indigenous youth who were similarly coming to Yellowknife and getting stuck. And she was an addict, fighting her alcoholism. And Kate learned from her that if you bought mouthwash and kept it on especially cold nights, the alcohol would separate as everything else in the bottle froze. And then you could take a knife and slice that frozen bottle open and suck out the booze to get drunk at 1/10 of the price that a handle of cheap vodka would cost you. Sophie was known to many in the city, but to many more, she was just that homeless woman, if they even thought of her at all. And when she died in the late spring, she died alone, and she died unseen, invisible to all of the systems which should have noticed her very basic humanity. Kate wrote 1 year ago in Sophie's honor that the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation means a lot to me because for me it's a step towards healing people like Sophie, people that never even had a chance to live their life. So on this day, educate yourself and listen and learn and understand that Indigenous people have been screaming for help for generations. So let's give them that help. Sometimes tshuva is hearing and witnessing the stories and the people that we really wish we could ignore, and dedicating ourselves to not ever ignoring them again. So earlier today, the Holy Blossom Temple Interfaith Committee, chaired by Coleman Green, attended a special event at Tollkeepers Park to witness and support the telling of these stories. and you can join their efforts. And furthermore, this Yom Kippur afternoon, amongst the selections of afternoon study sessions we are offering, Indigenous Elder Catherine Brooks and Holy Blossom congregant Stephen Bookman will join in conversation. And we hope, in the spirit of this challenging work, that you will join them on our most sacred day. On this Shabbat Shuvah, and this National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, may we continue to be engaged in the holy and heartbreaking work of healing ourselves and our community and our nation and our world. And we do so by knowing the stories, both the bright and the wonderful, the painful and challenging, and all the ones that are in between. Shabbat Shalom. Our worship begins its conclusion with the words of Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, la'tekedu la'leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kichol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech, Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Notesh Hamayim V'Yoser Haaretz U'Moshav Yekaro B'Shamayim Ima U'Shchinot Uzo B'Gavei Meromim Hu Eloheinu Ein Hod Emet Malkeinu Efes Ulato Kakatuv b'Torato v'yadata hayom v'hashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim b'shamayim mima ve'al haaretz mitachat einod Venemar V'Adonai L'melech Al Kol Haaretz Bayom Hahu Yehieh Adonai Echad Ushemo
At this time, I invite the mourners among us to rise so that you may be seen and recognized by our community. Today, we mark the yahrzeits of the following: Mayor Ebel, Arthur Axler, Meyer Bald, George Baruch, Anita Bliss, James Campbell, Isaiah Carpenter Winch, Helen Castleman, Maury Charendoff, Mildred Collins, Celia Collins, Eva Doige, Louis Eisen, Fred Field, Reuben Gold, Jeanette Goldhar, Harry Goodman, Pauline Gould, Philip Hannock, Joseph Hochberg, Anna Huttner, Max Castle, Anita Katzman, Saul Laskin, David Leese, Rose Lieberman, Alex Lipson, Samuel Miles, William Mitchell, Edith Moskowitz, Eva Osler, Tilly Paulin, Zena Pearlstein, Maxwell Pearlstein, Samuel Pazim, Francis Ram, Chemach Rothstein, Esther Rower, Harry Samuels, Nathan Schipper, Clara Senderwitz, Shirley Shaul, Rose Shendroff, Sydney Smith, Toby Sochel, Jacob Strauss-Zeller, Lorraine Sussman, Kay Tartik, Earl Usprich, Mitch Walderman, Philip Weisbecker, Simon Wintrob, Lou Winston, Adele Young. We too recall the lives of those who have died most recently, whose families are in the period of Shloshim: Miriam Schleifer, Rosa Lasky, Avram Oppenheim. Are there names to be added? Zichronam livracha. May their memories serve us as an eternal blessing. We rise as one community to recite Kaddish Yatom and praise God's holy name. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayed chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei tudusha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comfort to all who are bereaved. And together we say, amen.
Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu Kiddush can be found on page 439. Pardon me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikrai kodesh, zecher l'tziat mimitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha Be'ahava uvratzon hinchatanu, Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. What a beautiful challah. Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.